Hello again, YouTube. Welcome back to another Thoughts on Books video that I'm doing. Today it is going to be The Dark Tower by Stephen King. I have all the books. So yes, let's begin. I swore that this next one I would do would be better and I'd have everything pre-thought out, but I lied. So get used to disappointment with me, because you're going to get a lot of it. So jumping right in, the Dark Tower series is a 7/8 book long series that is stretched from June 19th, 1970 to April 7th, 2004. That is 34 years this series has been going on. And a 8th book, which lands between books 4 and 5, has come out in 2013, I believe. I have not read it yet. I kind of want to. But, yeah, the series is complete. It has taken... There's an ice cream truck outside. Ice cream truck. This is where I'd fall off my chair. Some of you might not understand that. So it's a series that has spanned a long time. There's over 4,000 pages, I think, collectively. A lot of words. It's a big series. And the interesting thing about Stephen King is he thinks it's his best work. And a lot of people don't know what it is. Most people know him, he's the guy who did The Shining. He's the guy who did Carrie. He's the guy who did Salem's Lot, this, that, and the other. And no one really thinks about him and thinks, oh yeah, Dark Tower. So I figured I'd kind of bring this series to illumination, because even online there's not that big of a community about it. It's kind of a subdued thing. But the people that do enjoy the books are pretty avid people. So I thought I'd kind of bring it out of its shell and kind of show it to the world a little bit. I'm going to do this kind of review thoughts on video in 3 different layers. The first layer is going to be for people who don't have any idea what this series is about, never heard of it before, whatever. Second layer will be kind of non-spoiler territory, talking about the nature of the books. And then the third layer will be full-on spoilers, people who have read the series and just kind of want to see what my thoughts are. So, first layer, for people who have no idea what this book series is, I highly recommend jumping into it blind. But you need to be wary that what this series is it's kind of a meta work on fiction in general. It's these books are about what it means to be a fictional story. That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, but the series explores themes of fiction, what it means to be characters in a story, and there's a lot of genres smashed together. You got sci-fi, you got horror, you got drama, you got romance, what else? Period piece at a point, fantasy. You got everything smashed together in this one series, and it's kind of jarring, especially in the Gunslinger. This is the original Gunslinger that is currently out of print, I'm pretty sure. I don't think they print this anymore. This is the original Gunslinger, which is a compilation of 5 short stories, which were published over the course of some time in the 70s. Each story is a chapter, and it was collected into this kind of thing here. So it's a very scatterbrained book. And then in the drawing of the 3, the second one, it really starts to form together. So a lot of people, I think, get turned off to the series because of how inconsistent the first book is. It's all over the place. It's peculiar. You don't know what it's trying to do. It was rehashed a little bit better in the revised version, which is what's in print now and the most common one to get. And even then, it's still kind of a funky thing to read. So be wary that you're going to be getting into something you've never probably gotten into before. It's not a straight cut story. It makes you think a lot about what it means to be a book. So think about that, but I highly recommend jumping in blind, not knowing anything about it. Long story short, it's about this guy named Roland who's looking for a tower. You don't know why, and that's why you're reading the books. Go. Second layer of this thing is for people who you don't have to have read the books or anything for this part, but I'm going to kind of talk about the nature of the story and everything that revolves around it. The nature of all the books and what I think of the whole overarching aspect of the story See, the reason I'm going into this part is because even like talking about elements that are in the series, I consider it to be kind of spoilerish because there's so many surprises that are in this series. So just kind of be wary for this part. Like I said, if you want to jump in, here we go. So first book starts out with Roland just following a guy called the Man in Black, who happens to be Randall Flagg from The Stand, which is my first thoughts on video. Walking through the desert looking for this guy. You don't know where Roland's come from. You don't really know where he's going, apart from the fact that it says kind of at the beginning, he's going towards a tower and looking for the Man in Black. That's kind of all you got. So, first book, pretty straightforward. Not a whole lot happens. You kind of get introduced to different elements, such as the world that this book takes place in. It's called All World, I believe. All World. Something like that. And it's almost like it's an alternate dimension to our world. And a lot of the times, if someone dies in our world, they'll end up in All World. They'll just show up there. So Roland meets a young man named Jake, and come to find out Jake had died in the real world in New York. And they kind of meet up together, and Jake helps him and all that kind of stuff. Drawing of the three afterward is where two extra characters get introduced. Basically, he draws three people into his world, and two of them are main characters, very main characters, and they get kind of established there. And I don't have the third book. Geez, this is tough. This is really tough to explain. Third book is where like a lot of fiction crossovers gets kind of established. Something like a children's book in our world is like dictating a real event in All World, stuff like that. I don't have Wizard and Glass with me. I don't have Wolves of the Calla with me either, but I'm not going to kind of jump too far ahead. I just kind of want to talk about the nature of the story. So all throughout the series, you're wondering what is up with the tower. It's one of the biggest MacGuffins I have ever come across in stories. And a MacGuffin is the object in a story that the main characters are pursuing. And a lot of times you don't often know why the MacGuffin is important, which is kind of the reveal at the end. So all throughout the book, Roland is looking for this tower, and you don't know why. It gets slowly revealed to you, and then at the very end of the series, you realize what the whole thing is about. So it's a long series. There are dull moments. There are slow parts where you want to put the book down. But the ending is completely worth all the pages you went through to get there. It's an absolutely stunning revelation at the end when he gets to the tower. So good MacGuffin, Stephen King. I'm going to talk a bit about the characters now. Like I said, this is somewhat spoiler-ish because if you know what I'm about to say, then some of the series is kind of spoiled for you because you sort of know what's coming. But like I said, it's up to you. You've gotten this far. So Roland is the last gunslinger of Gilead, which is kind of like a Western cowboy version of the Knights of the Round Table. They were sort of the peacekeepers of the time. And this is another big element of these books, is the anachronistic nature of this fiction. There's crossovers like you wouldn't believe. There's a scene in the Gunslinger right at the beginning. You're thinking, okay, this is like a Western. He's in the desert. There's some fantasy going on. But he ends up coming to a town, and in the saloon, this dude is plunking on the piano. He's playing Hey Jude, which is a Beatles song, from 1960, 70 something. So immediately you're like, okay, there's something really weird going on with these stories. There's crossovers. There's things that shouldn't be there. Things that shouldn't be there is a big element of these books. Yeah, so he's the last gunslinger, the last peacekeeper. He is the only one left alive from this order, and it's kind of a mystery as to how everyone died and why he's the last one alive still. But that gets kind of revealed later on, and it's a pretty crazy thing. So Roland is marching his way to the tower. You don't know why he's going there, but along the way, he comes across people who help him out, and here's incoming spoilers, sort of. Most of them come from our world in New York City. So he pulls people from New York City, and they kind of help him. They overcome their own demons in a way. One's a heroin addict, one has a split personality. And they sort of fight with their own demons and bond with Roland in a way. And they sort of don't have anything to go back to once their demons are cured. So they pretty much just follow Roland the whole way through. They're like, all right, you're going for this tower. We don't quite know why, but we'll go with you because this seems important. This feels important to us. So onward they march. They meet a lot of people along the way. The characters are really incredible. You get very attached to them, and you see them grow a lot and go through a lot of hardships together, a lot of bonding, and by the end of the book, it's kind of sad to see him go. Not that they all die, of course, but it's just like that's it. You're done with these people. So the characters are phenomenal, really good. The locations are pretty cool. Like I said, there's a lot of anachronistic stuff here. So, again, slightly spoilerish stuff. You come across a place that's like a replica of New York City, like a duplicate, and you come across the Emerald City from The Wizard of Oz. It's sitting there, and they come across it. A big thing. All right. I'm gonna kind of dish out a little bit of something. This is a small spoiler. Something about the nature of the tower here. Like I said, if you made it this far, you're probably not too worried about it. The tower is kind of revealed to be a linchpin that sort of holds all the worlds together, all the worlds in existence, all the dimensions. The tower is holding them all steady. They kind of revolve around it in a way. And come to find out, the tower is failing. Roland I believe he has like dreams of it falling or something like that. Basically, if the tower falls, everything is destroyed. Everything will just disappear and fall into a black void, whatever. So Roland needs to get to the tower to make sure it's safe. That's his thing. So the tower is kind of, like I said, unsteady, which means that all of the worlds are kind of mixing. There's things called thinnies, which are like basically places where reality isn't a thing. And it kind of goes just into the... what is the name? I have to look this up. I am so sorry. It's called the Prim. I found it. The Prim is the primordial chaos that Gan... basically God, originally rose from, spinning the universes from his navel. So, yeah, the Prim is basically like almost Stephen King's representation of hell in a way. It's like a void where there's crazy, weird monsters. Trivia, the monster from It came from the Prim. And someone similar to It actually shows up in the last Dark Tower book, and they're believed to be of the same species. I found that really fascinating. People who have read It and watched It have probably no idea. So there you go. It's like an origin thing. So the Prim is like basically the nothingness, the void, hell, whatever. And the Thinnies are places where like reality is eroding and the Prim is there. They make these whiny noises. Like I said, like the Emerald City shows up, something else from a different work of fiction. So that, like I said, anachronistic stuff up the wazoo. This series is nuts in terms of that. So locations are pretty cool. The last book has kind of a sprawling feel to it. It's real nice. There's some cool locations in New York that they go to, especially in books like 2 and 3. Those are really cool. Just a lot of fun. And moving on to, let's say, like language. The way the books are written are really elegant. They're really cool. I wonder if I can just like find something from one of these books and show it to you. Stephen King has a really interesting way that he writes. You get stuff like this, where it's just like essentially a map, just like a little doodled map in there. There's really interesting formatting in some places. Like right here, for example, I don't know if you can really see it all that well, but like right down here, I might make a close-up of it. Just like different font choices. So, really interesting formatting, language, sentence structure going on in the books. It makes it really engaging to read. Not quite on like a House of Leaves level, but it certainly changes it up from book to book, and it's pretty cool about that. So again, I'm going to touch on the end for a second. As you're going through these books took me like 6 months to read. It took me a long time to get through this series, but I stuck through the course. There was book 4 was one of the hardest books to get through for me. It was long. It was told mostly in flashback, which made it kind of hard. You know, the story didn't feel like it was progressing because I was reading a flashback most of the book. So there were a lot of hard parts in this series, but getting to the end, I listened to the audiobooks, and getting towards the end of the final book, the last like 3-4 hours, you know, I was at the tower. I had to see what was going on. And I'm going to give a little bit of a kind of a spoiler in terms of the structure of the last book. Basically, let's say this is where... Okay. I hate to do this, but I'm going to cut this off here. I'm just going to say that the ending had me reeling. I couldn't stop thinking about the ending for days after this book was finished. I was devastated by how the story came to its conclusion. I've never been affected, not since like BioShock Infinite have I been affected by some form of fiction this hard. It's the kind of thing where like you just read a book and you have difficulty talking to people. You know, that's some insane work in terms of an author or just any kind of artist in general, is to have that kind of an impact on you. And like I said, even still, I think about the ending and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. An insane thing to write. But I'm going to kind of jump into the spoiler territory now. I'm going to say one small thing that's pretty spoilerish, but I'll jump into the spoilers afterwards, so you can... This is just kind of one little bit transitioning here, but right before Roland enters the tower, the door's shut, and you think you might not be able to see what's inside. The door's shut, and we're on the outside. Then there's a little bit of an epilogue that ties up some character stuff, and then there's a coda where you're inside the tower with Roland and you get to see. But King gives you the choice. He says, if I were you, I would stop. I wouldn't go into the tower with Roland. I'm paraphrasing. I wouldn't go into the tower with Roland. I would stay on the outside and accept this happy ending. Not really happy ending, but just like, you know, it's not about the journey. It's about the journey, not the conclusion. And that's very much the case with these books. But he's like, okay, you want an ending? Here's an ending. And he gives us an ending. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Like I said, I can't believe it to this day. So that's the end of that bit. I'm going to jump into spoiler territory here now. So let's begin. So starting with the first book, The Gunslinger, both normal and revised. Interesting thing about the normal one, apparently it was supposed to be set in our world originally, but within the revised one, he changed it to All World, or a different world, or what have you. I don't know if it says All World in the first book, but yeah, like I said, I'm assuming everyone has read the entire series. If you're listening to this part, kind of a scatterbrained book, but it is sort of fun. Kind of interesting mishmash of genres going on there. It wasn't until the drawing of the 3, book 2, that things really started to become encapsulating. This is more like an action thriller in my mind, with elements of fantasy in there. This is an excellent book, even just on its own. You know, it's a great beginning point in the series. Not to say skip the Gunslinger, but it's a good foot to start out on. It's a great book. It's really where the series starts to find its voice. And it almost stands with its own voice on its own. It almost doesn't feel like a Dark Tower book when you think about it going back. But this is where you really start to feel the difficulties that the characters have to go through. Like being a gunslinger and losing, like, what is it? These 3 fingers on your gun hand? Like, that is detrimental. But it happens right at the beginning of this series. Like, oh, okay, Roland doesn't have those fingers anymore. He can't shoot with his right hand anymore. Like, oh my gosh. So you could immediately tell it's not any like George R.R. Martin level of character torture, but you could definitely tell that these characters are going to have a hard time and they're going to be put through some hard stuff. So, like I said, you can even see here, just kind of some interesting formatting. A lot of unique uses of things like dashes, parentheses as well. Stuff that you don't often find in a lot of books. Drawing of the 3 was excellent. One of my more favorite ones of this series. I really enjoyed it. But it wasn't until the Wastelands, I feel, where things really started to kind of show its teeth. This is where you really begin to see the fiction crossovers and kind of the elements that the Dark Tower has in play. Stuff like the train, New York City, or Lud, the duplicate, getting Jake back into All World. A lot of interesting things come into play, and especially the Tom and Jerry's Artistic Deli. I think that gets introduced here. And that gets kind of, built up. And that place in New York, I forget the name of the address. Maybe I'll put it up here if I can remember it. That gets kind of established a little bit. So this is where a lot of seeds get planted and stuff starts to grow. Wastelands it felt like a long book, and I wasn't quite sure where it was going. Lud kind of felt a little boring at times. But looking back on it, I really liked it. It was a really good one. I liked the bit with Jake and the haunted house. Getting Jake back into All World felt excruciating. It's like opening up all the doors, hoping to see something on the other side, and it wasn't working time and time again until finally he goes into the house and bam, he's back. So that was pretty cool. I liked that. Lud was fun in retrospect. Yeah, just a lot of cool stuff. I think this is where Oi shows up. is pretty cool. I don't have books 4 and 5 with me. They're being lent out. But book 4 is told mainly in flashback, like I said, about Roland's first adventure as a gunslinger, after he had kind of earned his guns prematurely. It's a weird thing. A lot of people say Wizard and Glass is their favorite book of the series. It's my least favorite. Not that I dislike it, but it was hard to get through. It was a difficult book because you know that they're not getting any closer to the Dark Tower. Important characters are getting set up in that flashback, and important things like the Black 13 get set up. But that's, you don't know that until later. You think you're just hearing all this supplementary stuff for however long, 400, I don't even know how many pages it was. So it was a little excruciating. It kind of dragged. I felt Wizard and Glass could have done with an edit, I felt. It could have been abridged a tiny bit. Maybe a chapter's worth of stuff could have gotten taken out, but whatever, He set up characters, he liked what he did, so whatever. Wolves of the Calla, another kind of... I didn't mind this one as much because you got new characters. You got the Father Callahan thing set up, and kind of, that kind of played out its thing. I really enjoyed the Father Callahan post-Salem's Lot story with, the Elton John song. The Home is what it was called, like the soup kitchen or whatever. It felt really nice and fleshed out. It was really good. It was a little tedious at times, but I didn't really mind it as I was listening. Wolves of the Calla was a long book, but it was pretty cool. There were some high stakes. The battle was done pretty quickly, but you reap what you sow, and what have you. So that gets set up to segue into Song of Susanna. And Song of Susanna, this is a weird book. It's shorter than both Wolves of the Calla and Dark Tower, which it sits betweens. It's a weird interlude, actually. I don't even remember all what happens in it, to be honest. I know that Susanna has the baby. This is the book that has Stephen King's diary at the end. That's right. Yeah, that's cool. Stephen King shows up, obviously, in this series. The character Stephen King and the person Stephen King. And you get to see his diaries in the back here, talking about the nature of the Dark Tower itself, the series, and what it means to him. And that's one of my favorite elements of this entire series, is the fact that he, as an author, holds this series so close to him and incorporates that kind of stuff into the series itself. And it's like, that's what it means to be working with fiction. I love it so much. So, I don't even remember what happens here. They go to New York to kind of rescue, because Susanna is possessed by someone named Mia. She was a demon from the very beginning of the series who kind of tried to rape Roland, I believe, rape him to death. She was a succubus. But she is possessing Susanna and has her baby, the chap, who's the son of the Crimson King. And it's very complicated, I know. But she takes Susanna off through a portal in the Wolves of the Calla town, the village, takes her to New York. That's where a lot of this gets set up, because people try to get to New York. So it's kind of a shorter book because, like I said, stuff has to get set up for the final book, which is insanely long. This is another huge, massive book. Not as big as The Stand, but it is quite large. This book took me several months to get through, definitely. I felt it almost could have been split, or it could have been tacked on to Song of Susanna, the first half. Because the first half, they go to that place, the village, I don't remember the name. The place where they meet Ted Brodigan. the place where Eddie Dean, spoiler, dies. I forget what it's called, but yeah, it's like it's in Thunderclap or something. It's the only place that light shines on. It's like almost a prison. It's the place where the breakers, the mind control people, are working on breaking the beams that are holding up the tower. That little bit, I feel, could have been tacked on to Song of Susanna. But, I mean, whatever. You know, you're working on a schedule, something. You don't always know what the stories are going to say. So, the first bit of this book kind of chronicles Susanna and Mia, them having the baby, and Mordred, this half spider, half person, gets born. And, you know, he goes off and does his thing. A cool element that gets thrown into this story is the whole, the rose in the abandoned lot, or whatever it is, and how they build that tower around the flower. Moses Carver and whoever else the other guys were, the three dudes, who basically were like the Tech Corporation. That's right. And their exploits, which King wrote in this book, it's like that could have been a whole book in and of itself. And that's a cool thing about this, is like Roland's going towards this tower, and along the way he has so many people helping him, so many adventures, so many legends born because of this adventure. That's a cool element I liked about this, is how like the Moses Carver trio were like almost famed by the time Roland shows up and like pays his regards or whatever. So they're heading towards the tower in this book. You learn that the Crimson King went crazy, killed himself with a spoon, and became undead because of it. This is where the book kind of gets weird in a lot of ways. I don't mind it so much, but it is a little confusing. It's kind of left to interpretation, I suppose, but it definitely is one you have to kind of dwell on for a while. So they're heading towards the tower after they saved the breakers from that prison, and the tower is technically safe. Technically, Roland can be done now, but he's not. He has to get to the tower because the beams will reassemble on their own. They will rebuild, but he has to go see the tower. It's drawing him like none other right now. So, along the way, Jake dies again. Oi dies. They meet. Dandelo was one of my favorite parts of this seventh book. The relative of it, or the other species, the similar species of it. That was one of my favorite parts of the book. If they make the movie or miniseries or TV show or whatever, I'd love to watch that part. It was really cool. So they're going along. They save Patrick Danville, who can alter reality by drawing it. That comes into play a little bit later. So they're heading to the tower. They're almost there. Oi dies. Susanna... What was it? Does Patrick draw a door for her to leave through? Maybe. Susanna goes back to, New York, which is kind of like a fake New York almost, where Eddie and Jake are still alive and they're actually brothers. So that's kind of the end of those side characters there. And then Roland finally makes it to the tower. Crimson King is on the balcony, tossing his stuff or whatever, his holy hand grenades of Antioch. And Patrick Danville, erases all of him except his eyes. That was a really cool segment. This is where the book gets so... Like, not only is Roland feeling this intense draw to the tower, but you as the reader is as well. I had to stay up until like 2 a.m. to finish this story because I couldn't put it down at that point. It's like, I made it this far, I'm going to keep going. So he goes in, the door's shut, and then you get the Susanna bit, and then it's like, all right, you want to finish this? Here's the coda. He's ascending the tower, looking at all of his life through all the doors. All the different things he's been through. He gets to the top and he opens the final door. And dang, man, I almost kind of saw this coming. I was thinking to myself, like, please no. What if? And then it was. Unbelievable. He gets taken all the way back to, what is it, the Mojave Desert? The Mohaine Desert? At the beginning of the series, right here. He's walking through the desert. He gets taken back all the way there. I wonder if there's artwork for it here at the end. Yep, right there. Him in the desert. Gets taken all the way back to the beginning. Come to find out, at the fall of Gilead, when all the gunslingers were killed, he dropped his horn. Roland, Child Roland of whatever, from the poem. Because this whole series is based on Child Roland to the Dark Tower Came, which is a poem by Robert Browning, I think. He drops his horn at the fall of Gilead and doesn't pick it up. In the poem, when he gets to the tower, he blows his horn and calls off all the names of the people or whatever. He does that in this book, but he doesn't have the horn because it fell. So he goes through, and like as he's going through this door back to the beginning of everything he just went through, he's like, not again. People theorize that this might be the 19th time he's gone through this cycle, because the number 19 shows up so often in this repetition. So, hypothetically, you might not see the same characters every run through, which makes this series so immense, and explains why he's the last gunslinger, because he's almost immortal at this point. He's been run through this cycle of going from desert to here to back, and just running through this circle. It's absolutely crazy. I had written some notes. Oh, it's on my phone, actually. I had written some notes on this a long time ago that I was going to use if I ever did something like this. Kind of talking about the ending of the book. Let's see. The tower is the manifestation of God. I think that's very much the truth. Stephen King really plays a lot with the idea of God, what he wants from us, a lot of different spiritual elements like that. Also, what it means to be a character in a story and how you're affected by it, which in a lot of ways, like with God and us below him, we're characters in his story. That's kind of like the mirror thing I felt was kind of going on through there. Like, he was the god of these characters. And then in turn, he also was a character in some other story. There's a lot of levels to it. Roland saves the tower and then has his own personal business with it. The story is a prequel to the poem, I feel. Like I said, he doesn't have the horn, but when he goes through again on the 20th time, he has the horn on his belt. So it's hinted at that, like, maybe he'll finally be at rest. Maybe he'll finally be able to go home to the tower, blow the horn. Everything will be done. Let me see. I'm going to try to read the final portion here. There they stood, ranged along the hillsides, met the view, the last of me, a living frame, for one more picture in a sheet of flame. I saw them, and I knew them all, and yet, dauntless, the slug horn to my lips I set and blew. Child Roland to the Dark Tower Came. So, that's kind of that. He just shows up, blows the horn, and then that's the end. So I think that this is like, he has failed so many times. He doesn't quite get it. That's like Stephen King said, it's not about the conclusion, it's about the journey. And that's kind of what Roland has wrong. He wants to get to the end, and at times, all these people he's come to love, he sacrifices to get to that tower. Like, letting Jake fall at the very beginning is just like that first stepping stone, that first slippery slope. He got really close to getting it this time. And it's hinted at that in this next time he'll get it. He'll understand what it means to pursue something this monumental. And saving the universe couldn't have been that easy anyway. Like I said, ignorance could have been better with the door shutting before us and Roland alone in the tower. Like I said, he gives you that option to not read the ending, and in a way, if you didn't know what was happening in that tower, you thought it would have been final. It's like, okay, he's in there, I don't know what's happened to him, but that's it, we're done. But once you know about that ending, there's a whole level to it, and your mind can't get off of it. It's, like I said, devastating. So those are my thoughts on the Dark Tower series. This has been a long video, I know. But please let me know in the comments what you think. Try to keep it spoiler free or give spoiler tags or whatever. But yes, stay tuned for more. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Share it with other people who have read the series or want to or something. Any and all feedback would be appreciated. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you later.